Hey everyone, welcome back to Navajo Tea Time and more spookiness going on.
Look! It's Wednesday!
How appropriate, a little black kitty showed up.
So cute. Yeah, so, okay, so I told my daughters not to be messing with tarot cards or, like, witchy things like this, just because they were kind of getting into that, you know what I mean? Like, collecting crystals and following all of these, like these actually big influencers online. And they started to get, like, really bad nightmares, and it was just kind of, like, all these things. And so when, because it wasn't fun anymore. It was getting kind of dark, and so we took them to a medicine person, and we had them look into it, and they were like, yeah, that the stuff that they are collecting and using is really causing a lot of chaos in their lives right now, and it's affecting their health, and so they can't be playing with that stuff anymore if we're gonna, get rid of it. So we fixed it, got rid of all that, but now they're not allowed to even look at those books or have those things in their rooms. And I've noticed a positive change in their health, well-being, sleep, eating, and school. And so I can't do this
What's your idea?
because they might see it and they'll be like, what the heck? You know what I mean? Like, you're a hypocrite.
Well,
I know, and I remember we were talking about it, and I was like, oh yeah, that'll be fun. And now I'm like, okay, maybe that's not a good idea, just considering everything. And I know I'm being super candid. I don't even know if I should share this with the whole world. But yeah, like, when crazy things start happening, like, I will consult, like, a Hatathli or a medicine person to look into it, just because they have the training and the knowledge to do that. You know what I mean? So, which I feel like as an amateur, I wouldn't do that because I wouldn't know how. And what if I interpreted things wrong or gave people wrong information? You know what I mean? And then it would affect them. So I try to, like, go to the professionals.
But no, if you don't want to, I won't do them.
Okay. I'm scared. I can't. I'm going to be a hypocrite.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
I know, like, the whole witchy thing, like, me diving into it, it's the way I've understood it, like, with a Navajo cultural aspect. I feel like when they say witches are evil, they're talking about a specific practice and a specific type of witch, you know, who is doing something with the Navajo medicine culturally, and that's the specific witchcraft that they're talking about.
Yeah.
Because
I know the
looking
difference.
into a lot of, like, the pagan witches, the Eastern European stuff and everything, because some of my family's from that area and that region, and I connect to it.
Yeah.
It's almost exactly like native culture, Navajo culture, practice in medicine with, like, meditating. There's certain cycles, different energies from different plants and things.
Yeah.
And that's almost exactly what, like, Navajo culture is. So a lot of my card readings and stuff is basically just...
Yeah.
It's just horoscope about things I already kind of know what the answer is. I just need the different confirmation.
Yeah, and I think for me, my comfort level is me knowing, so like what I practice, like when I'm gonna, like, if something like that were happening to me, right? Like, if I was in that same exact situation, what I would do, or what I do, is I have mountain smoke, right? And I know the teachings, you offer a prayer or a song, and you let it know that I'm going to take this, and it's for this purpose. It's for healing purposes. It's for protection. And you thank it, and then you leave an offering, right? And that's how it's done. It's very, like, it's supposed to be a respectful exchange. And so they gather the medicine, they or you or whoever gathers the medicine, and an offering has been made. There's a balance there, a prayer's been said, a song's been sung, and then so you have that medicine, and you don't just smoke it whenever. It's not for recreation. It's not like because you have a habit. You use it only for certain things. And they have a netobin, which are like tobacco songs, and you sing that song, and then you say your prayer, and they say that the smoke carries your prayer up to the holy people, right? Up into the sky, so that all around you, that it knows what your intention is, it knows what you need, it knows what protection you have. And I also have heard stories about our people. There was one story I was told where there was someone who had all these evil things coming at them, and this individual was running from them because they were chasing after them, trying to get to them. And he sat in his hogan, and he lit his zitnato, and he sang his songs, and he smoked. And he did that, and those things couldn't get to him. It's like it created this protective barrier around him. And I believe that that's true. And so if I was in that same exact situation, that's what I would do, because that's what I was trained to do, and that's what I've acquired that knowledge and that practice, and it has to be done in that very specific way. But when I was younger, I knew that tobacco was powerful, but I didn't have any of this training or teachings, you know what I mean? This didn't come to me till just a few years ago. So when I was younger, I do remember praying with a cigarette, because that's all I had. You know what I mean? I used to smoke cigarettes, and I would always have a pack in my purse. And I remember being in these tough situations. I remember one time I was with my friends. We were in the city. We all went out to a downtown area, and we were like, you know, going from like club to club. And I remember we got separated, and two of us found our way back to the car, and we were waiting there. We're waiting for our friend, and our friend was like missing. You know, we couldn't get a hold of them, and we were like, what do we do? You know, we're like, this is not good. You know what I mean? Like, we're far from home. It's late. There's all kinds of crazy people out right now, and we don't know where this person is. And he was like, do you have a cigarette? And I said, yes. And he was like, we're going to pray. So he lit the cigarette, and he prayed. And he was like, praying that our friend would find his way back to us. And I swear to God, not 5 minutes later, he walked up. And I was like, this is real. And, you know, in times like that, there have been times where I found myself in trouble, and all I had was a cigarette to pray with, and that's what I used. And then as time went on, as I got older, and I found my way to Dine college, you know, and I learned these things. I learned these stories and these songs and practices, and that is what got me through the pandemic personally, was having that. So that specific practice, I was told, you do it this way and no other way unless you absolutely have to do it another way, like with a cigarette, you know what I mean, or with something else. But there's a certain procedure that you go by, and there's a certain reverence that you have for it, because that in itself is a ceremony, but it's something that we can all do individually, right? So we're given that agency, so I don't have to seek out a medicine person, because now I can do that on my own. So, and then when it comes to other things, like when it comes to ceremonial things, there's very specific ways that you conduct yourself within a ceremonial space. You know, they call it ceremonial ethics and protocols. And I took a class on this, and it was cool because it was set up in the evening, so I was able to bring my whole family. So, you know, we would go to this class with other families, and we were there with a Hatathi, and he was like, you can ask me whatever you want. And so we're able to learn these ceremonial ethics and protocols, but we're also able to ask about very specific things that maybe weren't in the lecture.
Think about, you know.
Yeah. So it was good. And so knowing that there's a certain direction that you move in, there's a certain, there are very specific songs for certain things, certain procedures, you know what I mean? And so knowing that, then you know how to conduct yourself appropriately. You know the body language, the tone of voice, you know the reverence you have to have as you go through these things. And so for me, that's familiar. And so for me, that's my safe space. And it's also strict enough to make me feel like the structure can be depended on. You know what I mean? It's not me just assuming, or me interpreting things on my own, or me like, I'm just going to do this my way, you know what I mean? And so for me, that's like, just because it's been this repetition that I've seen, I've started to build, the consistency, I guess, makes me feel a little more safe and stable. You know what I mean? And so, but in itself, though, that too is a ceremony, right? And that too is a practice. And so it's not very different from what other people do from other cultures. And I think, like, if you're drawn to a certain practice that your people have engaged in for a time, or that's a part of how they do things, you know, then I think there's definitely going to be a comfort level there. You know what I mean? There's a connection there. So I'm not like judging or anything.
No, I get it. No.
It's just like
it's very, for me, it's always been like, ever since I was little, like, it's always been intuitive in the way I do things, like, from a very young age, even in, like, middle school and, like, whatever pre-middle school is, you know, I always loved to, like, if I wanted something, just write it and burn it. It's always been something I did. And there's just different, I don't know, like rock collecting. Like, you know, I love collecting little rocks. Always, like, all my family, we walk around and we just pick up rocks. Because, like, you're drawn to it. You feel something, so you take it with you. And for me, like, my family, both sides, are very disconnected from traditional practices of, you know, that isn't Christian, or Catholic-based or something like that. So there's never been a place for me to turn to that, except for the stereotypical pagan European witchcraft, which always felt more correct than going to church and praying.
I think it's super intriguing, and I think there is a magnetism to it that pulls me, especially with the new, like, designs and the aesthetic that's created on social media. Like, it's really hard to, you know, and it's very attractive. And when I go to town with the girls, you know, I have to tell them, like, no, we're not going to Crystal Magic this time. There's a section of Barnes & Noble. I'm like, no, we're not looking over there. And I feel like I'm turning into my mom. And my mom is very Christian, right? And so she was like, Dad, you can't look at those things. Don't touch them. Don't bring them into the house. You're going to bring evil into the house. That's how she framed it. And I don't want to be like that, but I feel like I'm moving closer to it. And it's just this protective instinct because I did see that how things changed after we got rid of that. After we cleared it out and we made them get rid of those things. And how I've seen a dramatic change in their behavior, their productivity, their health. And so I'm just like, okay, things are okay now, let's keep it like that. You know what I mean? Let's not make it more complicated than it needs to be. Their history, specifically within their family and their bloodline, they come from a people who practice that. You know what I mean? They were known as individuals that had that ability and power. And so we're, you know, nurturing that learning and connection so that they can reconnect to that element of their own culture, which I think is beautiful, you know what I mean? But it's also like, okay, let's do it with care. You know what I mean? Let's do it cautiously.
Yeah,
and
you know, kind of like
instruction, you know?
Sort of like when you learn to drive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess I'm just trying to keep them away from something that's very foreign, though, like Ouija boards and tarot cards. I'm just like, no, we're not doing that, because number one, that isn't a part of your culture specifically, but also we don't know how to control that either. Like, what if it goes awry? What were the intentions of the people that created this, or is there anything already attached to it? Because that's what happens too. And I know that sounds kind of like superstitious or like weird or whatever, and I know our viewers are probably like, what the hell? But I know, I get it. I know you guys are probably like rolling your eyes, but at least that's what I believe and was told also. So.
Like, if you deep dive into the history of the Ouija board, like the guy who actually created this game, he said he was like inspired to make it, and then like even the early production of the Ouija board, a lot of like random horrible things happened.
That thing's crazy. Like, okay, so I was at the Denver airport and they had a whole exhibition of Ouija boards, different kinds in there, and it was just a weird freaking vibe in there. But, you know, I've heard some freaking horrible horror stories about Navajos using Ouija boards, and I'm just like bloody, horrible, like demon possession stories that people I know who've actually seen it happen or had to investigate and clean up the blood. You know what I mean, of those people, and it's nuts. And so I'm not gonna go there, but that's what has happened and can happen, and I'm just like, not in my house. You know what I mean? Like, if I can avoid that, like, if leaving that item or those items outside, you know what I mean, of the home is going to prevent something from going horribly wrong, then I'm going to do that. You know what I mean? And I don't care if anyone judges me. Like, I'm sorry, but that's just how it is.
That's always
right?
been my view of Ouija boards.
Yeah, Ouija boards
like,
are nuts.
You just don't bother them. But like with me, with like the tarot cards, they're not tarot cards, they're oracle cards. Tarot cards, I feel like, are sort of not specifically Ouija board like, but it's definitely a specific practice, and they mean they're hard, fast rules of what they mean and how they're interpreted.
Yeah.
So with the oracle cards, I feel more comfortable because they're not as hard, fast to the rules.
Yeah.
In that way.
Well, I mean, I have 2 stories of tarot cards too. I know they're legit. I respect them. I know there's like power there. I know there's something there. I don't know what it is that is behind it or what spirits are attached to it. They can see into the future. Okay, so I think we should transition to the scary story because I really think this is a good one.
Yeah, someone commented on our last year's scary story videos. We'll post the screenshot here. It's always so funny because we're just waving our hands around and then I put it up in editing.
Okay, in 1989, I ran a daycare from my home. I was making the kids their afternoon snack when I heard a voice say, "Go to the door." I learned a long time ago to listen to that voice as I believe it. It is a spirit guide. I went to the door and saw a man standing there. He smiled a frightening grin and said, "Let me in." I told him no, and he said, "I want to talk about God." Yee! I'm just kidding. I answered with, "I don't want to talk about God." He then turned to his bicycle and rode down our long driveway. At that moment, my husband, a security guard, was coming in from work. I asked, "Did you see that man?" He couldn't have missed him. He said, "What man?" One of the kids then said, "He was scary." He literally disappeared. I took a college literature class that next semester and found out that the devil is often portrayed riding a bicycle. Ooh, I got the chills. That's scary. See?
See what? I've honestly never heard of like the devil riding a bicycle.
Me either. I heard he plays a banjo. A
fiddle.
A fiddle, yeah. A fiddle, that's what it was. Wow, a banjo.
No, but like, have you ever had that like a voice just like speak really clearly to you?
Yeah, and I was gonna share that story. So you were telling me about the dream that you received and like got instruction. Well, I believe dreams are very, very powerful, and I believe that I do believe our ancestors and others can speak to us, and I do believe that we can receive messages through them. And what I was told is back in the day we used to have that way of like diagnosing. You know how now we use like the crystal gazing, or what else do medicine people do? They do crystal gazing. They do, some of them use a feather. Reading. Yeah, charcoal reading and like hand trembling. So those are some ways that people do it now. Those are some ways that have, I guess, continued. But back in the day, there used to be a way of interpreting dreams. And that's kind of a way we've lost. It's almost like the nachit that we don't use anymore. It was a way of communicating without using language or words. And we don't use that anymore. We don't do that anymore. It's kind of like been lost, they say. And so I'm really fascinated with that. But anyways, so dreams are super powerful. And I remember, okay, so over the summer, I went on this hiking trip. Do you remember I told you about that? I went on this all-women's hiking trip. And on the way up, we were about, maybe like a mile or two up the mountain. And we were told this story about this concept of leadership, so, the story about how our leaders came to be, and they say that, leadership was first bestowed on certain animals, like mountain lion, bear, timber wolf, and each of them had very specific, flaws to their nature or character that caused them to lose that, like, belt of leadership, they say. And it was passed on to another. And it's very similar to how I think we often react. Sometimes we're too aggressive, sometimes we get lazy, sometimes we're very egotistical or too prideful, and it affects, everyone around us. So leadership eventually ended up with the mountains. Dééh, right? Our mountains. And Dééh, it not only means a mountain or earth, but also translates to power. And so they are our leaders, and they sit, at the borders of the Navajo Nation, or Dééh, and they protect us, they guide us, they produce our medicine, and they hold stories. And so there's a lot of knowledge and power there, but we learn this concept. It's hoodie. And what that means is, it's this practice that we're told is, you put yourself through this pain, this struggle, this, you have to endure, right? And with that journey up a mountain comes a lot of clarity, and you can receive guidance and knowledge from the mountain. And so we're told that story, and for me it invigorated me, because the practice was and is that you utilize that time on the mountain not just to get to the top, not just to survive the journey up, because you don't know what you're going to encounter, and we encountered a lot of things along the way. In addition to fatigue, there's also wild animals, there's also, all kinds of things. You could get an injury, there's a lot of things that you can encounter when you're trying to climb a mountain. So not only did it make me be more cautious with every step I took, and to be very aware of my surroundings, but it also encouraged me to think about some of the struggles that I've been carrying with me, right? And and my mom kind of shared this with me, but she didn't. I don't remember her telling me that term, but I remember she said that she had come to a point in her life when it was really hard time in her life, and she said she went for a run, and it was like a 7-mile run that she ended. She was supposed to just go out for a short jog. It ended up being 7 miles, and she said during that time she was thinking about all these things that she was going through, and she said that while she was running, it was kind of like burning it all away, all the pain and the hurt and everything, all that stress, and it was a healing that she put herself through, right? And it only happened because she was putting herself through this. She had to endure that run. You know what I mean? It was hard. And she was telling me, because I had gone through something really tough, and she was like, you need to go run. You need to take it out onto the earth, and you need to put it all down with every footstep. You let that go. You let it, you burn it away. You let it go. You give it back to the earth so you don't have to carry it anymore. And I never did it. I knew I was supposed to do it, but I never did it because I had this aversion to running for a long time. And they say that sometimes the things that are going to heal you, they often are the things that you push away. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. It's uncomfortable. It's sweaty. It hurts. I don't like it. And you push the things that are really, what you really need, you push away sometimes. I know you're thinking. So I didn't do it, and I was carrying these things around with me for a long time, I kept saying, I'm going to do it, I'll do it this weekend, I'll do it next week, I'll do it later, I'll do it after work. There was always an excuse. So I'm on the mountain, I just heard this story, and I started, and it got to a point where when it got hard and it was more vertical, we started to kind of spread out, a little bit. We weren't all clustered together. And so I was up at the front, and I started thinking about what my mom had said, and I started thinking about this teaching that was imparted, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to I'm going to use this experience to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I deserve to heal. I deserve to put these things down. I don't need to carry these things anymore. I deserve to have a good life. You know what I mean? I don't need to be in pain anymore. I don't need to feel this stress, anxiety, and hurt anymore. I have to let it go. And so as I was hiking, I was praying and I was thinking about that. And I was like praying that, you know, just getting it out, you know what I mean, with this physical exertion. And I think it started to push me harder, you know, because rather than just being leisure, I was like really like, you know, I was putting myself, I was taking on more than I probably should have, but I knew that I needed to.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an amazing experience. I felt like I finally let it go. I felt like I gave it to the mountain. And I trusted the mountain to like, it had the power to take it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's so strong. Like, mountains are crazy strong. You don't feel it until you're on them. It's like, wow. Anyways, so we get to the top. I'm freaking exhausted. I finally get my tent up, ate. I got in my tent. I lay down. I fell asleep. So happy to just relax, you know, and take my boots off. And I was all cozy, and it started to rain. And I remember I could hear the rain, like, in the middle of the night. Everyone was asleep. It was quiet. And then I heard the rain come. So I wasn't in a deep sleep at that point. And I was still kind of, like, between consciousness and like, in the dreaming phase. And I heard a voice, very clear. And I was having this dream. And it was a dream that came to me, and it was a warning. And the voice I heard was the voice of someone I know does not like me, and I know would probably be very happy if I was not in their way. And I heard their voice, and they said something to me that was it was kind of scary, but it was nice to know, like, okay, that's what you're thinking. That's what's going on. You know what I mean? Because for a while there, I knew there was something going on, but I wasn't sure. And I always try to think the best of people. And I'm just like, oh, they're better than that. Well, this person was not better than that. I heard their voice very distinctly, very clear. And I was like, oh, dang. You know what I mean? I was like, oh my. And then I had this crazy clear dream, and it was a warning. It was like a very vivid, clear warning. And I knew that I was meant to receive that. You know what I mean? And I felt like it was the mountain telling me this and clearing all the fuzz away so that I could see very clearly. And I knew what I had to do. So I was always told, if you have a dream like that and it's not positive, it's kind of bad, someone has bad intentions for you or something bad's going to happen, then you need to, you know, like, you say a prayer. And so, like I told you, like, I'm very, like, I do pray, and I do know a few prayers. And so I prayed, and I got my phone, and I typed out the dream so that I would not forget it. So it was very, like, fresh in my mind. And then I sang a song, and then I went to sleep. I was like, okay, I'm okay. You know, I went to sleep. And then the next day, I was thinking about it, and I knew that when I got down from the mountain and I resumed my duties, the things that I was working on over the summer, I knew that I had to, you know, be more careful around this person and their family. And so from that point on, I didn't shake their hands, and I was very cautious, and I could see them watching me. You know what I mean? It was very crazy. Like, I don't know, like, once you see clearly how people are, you're just like, wow. And so I was just very careful. I stopped shaking their hands. Only one time I did, because I had to, because there was, like, all these people there. And if I didn't, because in the setting I was at, if I didn't do it, it would have, like, made me look, like, really disrespectful and bad. So I did shake their hand, but immediately my hand started hurting. And I was like, ooh, this person's bad. You know what I mean? Like, I knew it. Like, I knew it. Everything was confirming it. It was crazy. So I do believe that dreams are powerful. I do believe that we can receive messages like that. Mm-hmm. And I do believe in that term, you know, like that practice of putting yourself through, you know, these tough, difficult things like running or like this physical exertion of hiking a mountain, you know what I mean? And utilizing that time to pray and put things down and deal with like the things that stress you out or give you, or, like, you know, cause you harm or pain, you know, and utilizing that time to heal from it, or, like, let it go and give it to something, you know, like, let it go, let it melt off your body. So, I don't know, that was something that I started thinking about when you mentioned that dream that you had, because I'm like, you know, these are ways that exist, and there are teachings and stories behind it, and so, like, to be able to connect the dots, I think, it makes me happy to, like, it makes me happy to be alive, to live some of those experiences, rather than having it just be like, because I think for a long time, a lot of our ways were framed as fables, you know, or myths or legends, like, oh, your people are mythical, yeah, their practices are, it's all fable, you know what I mean? It's like, this story, this so-called history, it's just a parable, it's not real, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of times, like, that's how it was framed, and so now I feel like it's more real, because now it's a lived experience. So, yeah. That's kind of like, yeah, where my mind went. Oh dear.
Yeah, I don't know, I think, like, it's interesting and it's nice to share these more, I don't know, paranormal stories with each other, because, like, I definitely feel extremely isolated with some of the things I experience, not having someone else to talk to them with. And so, like, especially, like, if lots of your family is Christian and you just don't feel that way, and you experience things that are almost in complete opposition to what their teachings are and how they feel and what they believe, and they can't help you cope through these things because they don't experience it, they don't believe it, and they don't feel it the way you do.
Yeah, I like it too, and I think it's like having this platform, it's like a YouTube platform to kind of talk about some of this stuff in a candid but also somewhat veiled way, you know, like, I don't want to name names, you know, just because, I don't know, I feel like that's a little,
well, it kind of, like,
too far.
It goes to the way of, like, you know, these are our ghost stories, our paranormal experiences that we're experiencing, and other people can relate or they can't relate, and that's fine. Like, some people believe in ghosts, some people don't believe in ghosts, some people have had real intense experiences, and some people are like, oh, you know, it's just the wind.
Yeah.
And that's fine, because, you know, you're open to your own things.
Yeah. I don't know. I love hearing stories. Like, I do enjoy ghost stories, and I'm excited to listen to Scary Stories to Tell on the Res, which is now, I think they have a TikTok channel now, and they also, I don't know if they're on YouTube, but I know they're definitely on TikTok and Facebook. And so, Jeremy Baca, he's the host, and what he does is he hosts these live sessions online. He usually does it on all platforms at once, so he has multiple devices, and then he has people come on and join him on the live session, and they'll tell their stories. And last year, the stories were crazy, and they were so good. There was this one guy from, I think he was from Munkopi, he was Hopi, and he was telling stories about, like, some of their, like, stories from the field, you know, and he is such a good storyteller. It was so good. But, like, I really love hearing, like, native, I guess, scary stories, because the way we talk about them is we don't really talk about it like, oh, I got this feeling. It's like, no, I saw this thing and this happened and it's real. You know what I mean? And these things that most people are like, that's not true, that's not real. But we're like, no, we saw it. Like, it did this to me. You know what I mean? It's all crazy. And it's cool. And I love it because, like, oftentimes those things that we talk about, like the LP that we won't say, you know what I mean? Like, that's really, it's linked back to...
Oh my gosh, they did something last week.
Really?
I couldn't find something. Okay, I couldn't find my little card, and I was looking everywhere for it, and I couldn't find it for like a day or two, and then there it was, just in the open, like, I couldn't have missed it, and I'm like, you little shits!
I know, they're always getting you.
I blame a certain roommate of mine.
I know, like, now that I live where I live, I really love hearing, like, stories about, like, Bigfoot or Sasquatch that lives on the mountain. because there's some really good stories about that being and what they are and how they behave. Like, I don't know if I shared these during our last episode, but like stories about like wood haulers being out in the woods, and they say that if you take too much, they'll appear. Like, there was this wood hauler, he said he kept, like, he went back for like 3 loads or something, and on the 3rd load he saw it appear, and he said that he could see it, and it was like, it wasn't actually touching the ground, and he was saying that that being is an old ancient being from another time, and it's not actually fully in this dimension. That's why its feet don't touch the ground, and that's why we don't see its, because there's some people that are like, if it's real, wouldn't we see like excrement or homes or babies, or what else did they say? Wouldn't we see
what is it feeding on?
Like fossils, or like its feed, or its kill or whatever. And so they always say that, but like that's what one of the wood haulers was saying. Another wood hauler that I know personally said he was out in the woods, and he said that something raided his entire lunch, which was in the cooler, and it ate all his food, and he was like, what the heck?
Yogi Bear?
Yeah. I'm like, it was probably an actual bear. But, because they're smart. They know how to, so anyways, and then,
That reminds me of, like, a post from, like, the National Forest or whatever, like a meme. It's like, there's a fine line between the smartest bear and the stupidest tourist when they're creating the trash cans and how to open them.
Dang, that's messed up. Like, we're trying to favor the humans, but
like, we're trying to make these trash cans so the bears can't open it, but also we need to make sure the stupidest person can still open it. And there's this kind of that weird cross between bears.
Just sad. So yeah. So what do we want to encourage our listeners or viewers to do in the comment section?
I don't know. Tell us your craziest dreams that you've had. Like any of them, like deja vu. I get deja vu all the time. It always annoys me so much. And
what have you heard about deja vu? Like, what does it mean?
I don't know. Like, because sometimes I would have a dream, and then like weeks, months later, it'll feel familiar, like with the events that are happening. Like, I dreamt this. It was like a dream, beat per beat. And then sometimes something will just, like an action or the way someone says something or does something, it'll feel super familiar, and I'm like, I don't know why. I feel like I've been in this exact spot before.
Dang. Yeah.
But it's never been like, I don't know. I've never had it to where like, oh no, this is gonna happen. It's never been like premonition deja vu.
Yeah.
It's always been like retroactive. Like, oh, I've seen this happen before. It doesn't help me now that it's past. Yeah. It's just
I know. I think like when I have good dreams, it makes me feel like a little more hopeful that maybe they might come true. You know how they say like dreams can come true, not just like
nightmares.
Yeah. So I try to believe that. I try to have that like youthful faith. You know what I mean? I feel like only kids have.
I don't know. For me, like, I don't usually remember my dreams unless they're very traumatic. I don't know if you can hear them, but I have like 4 kittens that just woke up.
Running around like,
I'm like
everywhere.
That's why we keep like going off to the side.
They're all running around. It's funny.
If you see the light go down, it's because of the kittens.
Oh no.
But no, like, I've like every time, like, if I have like a really bad dream, intense dream, like when you feel it in your bones, like all the bad things that happened, those are really annoying.
Dang.
But yeah, let me know if you like experience dreams that way. Some people don't. Like my older brother, he's like, they're just dreams. I don't have those types of dreams. Like, okay.
Yeah, I think some people are more. I know. I think more. Some people are more susceptible than others. That's what I think. And I was told that when you have deja vu, it means that you're living your life. You're on the right path. Jinnah. That's what I was told. So, I don't know. What have you guys heard? What does it mean? Maybe you can tell us. And then what is
there a glitch in the Matrix?
I know. And like, what does it mean too when you hear like a person's very vivid, clear voice telling you something that You know they've been thinking, but haven't said to your face. What does that mean?
For me, for that, I was going to ask, like, because in school, I used to fall asleep. And this one time, I heard it, like, when I go like this, I feel like I hear it in my chest, not in my head. Like, I hear it in my chest for some reason. It's like, wake up! And then I woke up, and I looked at the board really quick, and the teacher called on me for the answer.
Whoa.
And I'm like, I knew it! I'm awake!
That's like from a movie or something. Sounds like something out of a movie. That's cool.
But yeah, so those are kind of our creepy, scary story experiences, weird lives we live as Native people.
I know, right?
I feel like this stuff is more like, it's not openly talked about, but there are definitely lots of shared experiences amongst us.
Yeah.
And it's not always...
See, there's a kitty. It's right there. It's a giant cat. Just kidding. Cute. Okay, well, I don't know. I kind of feel like if there's anything that we said that you're curious about, there's definitely ways to learn more about them. They're called libraries. God, just kidding. No, like for cultural stuff.
So, Adrian, where can people go to find like this cultural teachings?
Well, as I've said before, we have our parents, our grandparents, who oftentimes can share this information, but if they're no longer around or with you, or they don't know this information for one reason or another, which is totally understandable. I learned a lot of things from Dine College. I took classes. They do offer classes on culture, history, language, and there's also these new programs that they introduced before the pandemic that they do plan to continue, that were introduced by the, oh my gosh, there's cats. Introduced by the I believe, what was it called? The Sovereignty Institute. There were DMB classes, that's how they were designated on the schedule, and you can learn about ceremonial practice, singing. They had singing classes. That's where I learned how to sing like travel songs, journey songs, Zithbean, which are mountain songs, Obin, which are like tobacco songs, and what else? Some protection songs as well. So that was the access. That's the access that they provide. They have hogans on campus, and so you're not learning in a classroom. You're actually learning in the hogan with a hatathli, and they have several hatathli that are employed as faculty. They're professors, and so that's a really cool, unique experience that we have access to on the Navajo Nation. And a lot of these classes are now offered online. So I want to promote the college.
It glares at me like...
I know. We're like, but come on, it's like educational. It's on the Navajo Nation. We call Dine College the Navajo Nation's college. And tuition is 100% covered. So kind of a good time to go back to school and learn these things. So, yeah. There is a way. It's not like we're not completely, like, hope is not lost. You know what I mean? There's a way to learn, and that's how I learned. And you know, I think it's really cool. I think it's a cool time to be alive right now for that reason. Yep. And of course, there are the official channels. You know, if you do have a hatathli in your family that's trusted and has been vetted by the Dine Hatathli Association.
These cats are wild and they're like up the thing, falling down.
I know, we're gonna have a cat running up the background soon. They're all crazy. Okay, we should end the episode because the cats are going wild. So,
alright, thanks for watching.
Yep, thank you for watching Navajo Tea Time and supporting this channel. Like, subscribe, and share.